So to our ever gorgeous Professor Dr. Sheila Ibrahim, fellow masterants and masterandins, welcome to AID 216 class. One of our topics today is an act creating the Commission on Higher Education, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. To start with, let me ask you this question. How CHID was created? To better know the story, Teacher Amy will tell us how.
Good morning everyone, especially to our professor, Dr. Sheila Ibrahim. Ma'am, I am Amy Makig-angay, Teacher 1 from Dumalinaw District, one of your reporters today. This morning, we will be discussing about Republic Act 7722, an act of creating the Commission on Higher Education, appropriating funds, and for other purposes. This act shall be known as the Higher Education Act of 1994. In here are all levels of educational system in the Philippines. We have the first, national level, regional level, institutional level, and public and private higher education institutions. All of the aforementioned levels of education are supervised by DEX, or the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports. The Department of Education, Culture, and Sports had the sole responsibility for policy formulation, planning, budgeting, program implementation, and coordination in all levels of formal and non-formal education in the country. Before the Commission on Higher Education was born, education was already given importance and was written in the Philippine Constitution. Some relevant constitutional provisions directly expressing the role of the state in education. Based on Article 14, Section 1, the state shall protect and promote the right of all citizens to quality education at all levels and shall take appropriate steps to make such education accessible to all. Next, the state recognizes the complementary roles of public and private institutions in educational system and shall exercise reasonable supervision and regulation of all educational institutions stated in Article 14, Section 4, Paragraph 1 of the Philippine Constitution. Next, educational institutions other than those established by religious groups and mission boards shall be owned solely by citizens of the Philippines or corporations or associations at least 60% of the capital of which is owned by such citizens. The Congress may, however, require increased Filipino equity participation in all educational institutions. The control and administration of educational institutions shall be vested in citizens of the Philippines, stated in Article 14, Section 4, Paragraph 2 of the Philippine Constitutions. The state shall take into account regional and sector needs and conditions and shall encourage local planning in the development of educational policies and programs stated in Article 14, Section 5, Paragraph 1 of the Philippine Constitutions. Last but not the least, the academic freedom shall be enjoyed in all institutions of higher learning stated in Article 14, Section 5, Paragraph 2 of the Philippine Constitutions. All of these provisions were stated in Section 2 of Republic Act 7722. Section 3. The conception of the Commission on Higher Education. So the CHED is the governing body that covers both public and private higher education institution in the Philippines. So it was established on May 18, 1994 through Republic Act 7722, also known as the Higher Education Act of 1994. And it was created in view of the broad agenda for reforms which resulted from the Congressional Commission on Education, or the EDCOM, Report 1991 under the leadership of Senator Edgardo Angara, which recommended the trifocalizations of the organizational structure in education sector. So here are the levels of education in the Philippines. We have first the higher education under CHED, next the technical education and training under TESDA, then the Department of Education or the basic education under Department of Education. Is in section 8, the powers and functions of the commissions. So we have here CHED. The first power of CHED is direction, setting policy formulation. Next, quality assurance, monitoring and evaluation. Third, fiscal funds management. And fourth, general supervision. This states the tasks and the powers and functions of CHED. First is direction, setting policy formulation. So the powers and functions of CHED is to formulate and recommend development plans, policies, priorities and programs in higher education and research. Also recommend to the executive and legislative branches priorities and grants on higher education and research. Direct or redirect purposive research by institutions of higher learning to meet the needs of agro-industrialization and development. Next, quality assurance, monitoring and evaluation. The powers and functions of CHED is to set minimum standards for programs and institutions of higher learning recommended by panels of experts in the field and subject to public hearing and enforce the same. Also, monitor and evaluate the performance of program and institutions of higher learning for appropriate incentives as well as the impositions of sanctions such as but not limited to diminution or withdrawal of subsidy, recommendations on the downgrading or withdrawal of accreditation, program termination, or school closure. Next, another powers of functions of CHED is to identify, support, and develop potential centers of excellence in program areas needed for the development of world-class scholarship, nation building, and national development. Also, rationalize programs and institutions of higher learning and set standards, policies, and guidelines for the creation of new ones as well as the conversion or elevation of schools to institutions of higher learning, subject to budgetary limitations and the number of institutions of higher learning in the province or region where creation, conversion, or elevation is so to be made. Next, fiscal funds management. So the powers and functions of CHED is to recommend to the Department of Education, recommend to the Department of Budget and Management, or the DBM, the budgets of public institutions of higher learning as well as general guidelines for the use of their income. Also, CHED will develop criteria for allocating additional resources such as research and programs, development grants, scholarships, and other similar programs, provided that this shall not detract from the fiscal autonomy already enjoyed by colleges and universities. Next, CHED also has the power and function of devising and implementing resource development schemes. Also administer the Higher Education Development Fund, which will promote the purpose of higher education. The last, general supervision. The powers and functions of CHED is to review the Charter of Institutions of Higher Learning and state universities and colleges, including the chairmanship and membership of their governing bodies, and recommend appropriate measures as basis for necessary actions. Also, CHED promulgates such rules and regulations and exercise such other powers and functions as may be necessary to carry out effectively the purpose and objectives of this Act, and perform such other functions as may be necessary for its effective operations and for the continued enhancement, growth, or development of higher education. And that ends my report. Other details will be discussed by Sir Richard Makig-angay. Thank you and God bless us all.
Thank you so much, Teacher Amy. To go deeper and understand better the Commission on Higher Education, please refer in Section 5, Terms of Office. It states that the President shall appoint the full-time chairman and the commissioners for a term of 4 years. 4 years. Without prejudice to one reappointment. The terms of the initial appointee shall be on a staggered basis. So a full-time chairman shall hold office for a term of 4 years, and the next two commissioners will hold for 3 years, and the remaining two will hold for 2 years. The commissioners shall hold office until their successors shall have been appointed and qualified. Should member of the commission fail to complete his term, his successor shall be appointed by the President of the Philippines, but only for the unexpired portion of the term. What is the purpose of office of the chairperson and commissioners? The office of the chairperson and commissioner shall provide policy and optional direction to all CHED offices. Each shall principally be responsible for the optimization of social, institutional, individual returns and benefits derived from the conscientious allocation, utilization, and accountability of its funds and resources, following the tenets of efficiency and effectiveness, quality and excellence, relevance and responsiveness, and access and equity. Specifically, this office serves as the source of overall direction and guidance to the Commission, formulate policies, standards, plans, and programs for the development and reform of the Philippine higher education in a globalized context, formulates policies and guidelines on the generation and allocation of funds for higher education, and recommend to the Department of Budget and Management the budget of public institution of higher learning, deliberates on, resolves critical issues affecting higher education, chairs governing board of SOCs, and through the roles ensures that CHED's reform initiative take growth in the SOCs and represent CHED in meeting with the legislative and executive branches of government. At the present time, these are the sitting officials. The chairperson of CHED is no less than Attorney Prospero E. De Vera III, DPE. The first two commissioners are Madam Lilian A. de las Viagas, MEC, TM, PhD, and LLB. Next is Sir Ronald L. Adamat, PhD. For the next two commissioners, we have Perfecto A. Alvin, EDD, and Sir Aldrin A. Darilag, PhD, RMP, and RN. Section 7, Board of Advisors. There shall be constituted a Board of Advisors which shall meet the Commission at least once a year to assist in aligning its policies and plans with the cultural, political, socio-economic development needs of the nation, with the demands of world-class scholarship. The Board of Advisors shall be composed of the following: the Secretary of Education, Culture and Sports as Chairman, better known today as DepEd. Our DepEd Secretary is no less than Madam Leonor Magtulis Briones. Number 2, the Director General of the National Economic and Development Authority as co-chairman, no less than Sir Carl Kindrick Chua. The third will be the Secretary of Science and Technology, DOST, Sir Fortunato Boy Transico de la Peña. Next will be the Secretary of Trade and Industry, no other than Sir Ramon M. Lopez. The Secretary of Labor and Employment is no other than Secretary Listri H. Bello III. Next is the President of the Federation of Accrediting Association of the Philippines, or FAAP. Then the next is the President of the Fund for Assistance to Private Education, or FAPE, no other than Father Joel E. Tabora. And the two additional members of the Board of Advisors may be appointed by the President upon recommendation of the Commission. The Higher Education Development Fund, Section 10. Higher Education Development Fund staff intended to make CHED more readily responsive to the needs of its constituencies, especially the higher education institutions and their development programs. The Higher Education Development Fund was envisioned to be an autonomous buffer fund that can support CHED's fiscal independence and adequacy along with its efficient personnel. The Higher Education Development Fund staff has the following functions. Number 1, formulates and implements policies and guidelines for fund generation, fund allocation, and fund utilization. Number 2, fund generation activities. Number 3, manages and monitors the utilization of its EDF funds. Number 4, ensures the equitable utilization of fund according to regions and programs when applicable. Next, it ensures fast and accurate application and implementation of government accounting system and procedures. Next, mobilizes and sources out resources from donations, gifts, and conveyances, including materials, equipment, properties, services by gratuitous, entitled that will enable the sustainability of the fund. Next, engages in financing and investment operations in the financial, securities, and banking sector to generate income for its fund corpus by authorizing an investment and fund managers. Next, formulates an annual investment plan and financing program with plans, programs, project recommendations, the Commission for the Approval of the Trust Fund Governing Board, and reviews fund and investments management roles and guidelines as may be necessary, and review this periodically in order to optimize the fund allocation while achieving the educational development priorities of the Commission for the Approval of the Trust Fund Governing Board. This office is under the leadership of the Office of the Director, Attorney Christian A. Rivero, OIC, Office of the Director 3. In Section 12, the technical panels, it states that the Commission shall reconstitute and or organize technical panels for different disciplines, program areas. They shall assist the Commission in setting standards and in program and institution, monitoring and evaluation. The technical panels shall be composed of senior specialists or academicians to be appointed by the Commission. These are the technical panels. Number 1. Architecture, Fine Arts and other programs. Number 2. Architecture, Fine Arts and other related programs. Number 3. Business and Management Education. Number 4. Engineering and Technology. Number 5. Health Professions Education. Number 6. Humanities Education. Number 7. Science and Mathematics. Number 8. Social Sciences and Communication. And number 9. Transnational and Distance Education. According to the CSO 8 series of 2017, technical panel chairpersons and members provide technical expertise to CHED in conceptualizing and developing plans, policies, standards, guidelines, rules and regulations concerning the operation of higher education programs, and evaluating compliance of higher education institutions with minimum standards for the various higher education programs, in formulating guidelines and criteria for identification of centers of excellence and centers of development, in developing assessment instruments, in undertaking monitoring and evaluation tasks, in guiding CHED regional quality assessment teams in the implementation of developmental programs and projects, and representing the CHED in meeting, workshops, conferences, consultations, and hearings. Next is the technical committees. These are the following. Number 1, Architecture. Number 2, Biology and Molecular Biology. Number 3, Catholic Religious Studies. Next, Chemical Engineering, Chemistry, Electrical Engineering, Emerging Technologies, English Language, Fine Arts, History, Hotel and Restaurant Management and Tourism, Information Technology, Interior Design, Journalism, Literature, Marine Science, Technical Engineering, Medical Education, Medical Technology and Medical Laboratory Science, Music, Nursing Education, Occupational Therapy Education, Pharmacy Education, Philosophy, Physical Education, Sports and Wellness Management, Physical Therapy Education, Psychology, Sanitary Engineering, Sociology, and Speech-Language Pathology. The technical committee chairpersons and members serve in the working committees and assess the technical panels in undertaking the tasks and activities of the panels. Guarantee of academic freedom. It states that nothing in this act shall be construed as limiting the academic freedom of universities, colleges, in particular, no abridgment of curricular freedom of the individual educational institutions by the Commission shall be made except for letter A. Minimum unit requirements for specific academic programs. Letter B. Academic education distribution requirements as may be determined by the Commission. And letter C. Specific professional subjects as may be stipulated by the various licensing entities. No academic or curricular restriction shall be made upon private educational institutions which are not required for charter state colleges and universities. The 1993 Constitution provided that universities established by the state shall enjoy academic freedom. In 1993 Constitution, on the other hand, offered something different when it provided that A. All institutions of higher learning shall enjoy academic freedom. Under the 1987 Constitution, institutional academic freedom consists of four essential freedoms. 1. Who may teach. Number 2. What may be taught. Number 3. How it is be taught, or how it shall be taught. Number 4. Who may be admitted to study. In number 1, who may teach, it means the discretion in the appointment of academic personnel in accordance with its standards of competence and probity. A prerogative that is almost absolute, limited only by existing laws against discrimination. Number 2, what and how to teach. The institutional right to decide for itself its aims and objectives and how best to attain them, free from outside coercion or interference, save possibly when the overriding public welfare calls for some restraint and withdraw a wide sphere of autonomy, certainly extending to the choice of students. Number 4, who may study. Prerogative to determine through its own set of rules and could be allowed the opportunity to study. Admission rules vary depending on whether institutions of higher learning are private or public institutions. Right to promulgate or set academic standards for students' observance, again subject to the existing law and jurisprudence. As of 2018-2019, there have been about 2,393 higher education institutions in the country that are distributed among 17 regions. 1,721 are private schools, or 71.92%, while in public there are only 672 or 28%. To check the figure on the status of the Commission on Higher Education in 2019, please see the data shown. And that's all for our report. Stay safe and God bless us all. Thank you for watching.